unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. To make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So, welcome. Good to see you all. Good to see you all. When we start out practicing, we're encouraged to just sit, just look at our minds, just keep the precepts, and not read a whole bunch, think about what practice means, just practice. Depending on who we are, we might take that up, we might not take that up. But if we do choose to take that up, to just practice and not spend a lot of time in a kind of academic kind of pursuit of practice, something happens. Practice changes us. So during this retreat, I won't be talking a lot about what I have read about Samantas Vow. To be honest with you, I haven't read a lot about Samantas Vow. Each time I pick up the Avatamsaka Sutra, I get about a half a page in and then have to put it down. I have a little bit better luck with the Lotus Sutra, but honestly the chapter on Samantas Vow, I didn't make it very far into that. Traditionally, in Soto Zen, we talk about the three minds of the bodhisattvas, the mind of Avalokiteshvara, the mind of Samantabhadra, and the mind of Manjushri. And as Reverend Master Jiyu has laid out in her book, Zen is Eternal Life, there's a kind of progression from one to the other. And we start with the mind of Avalokiteshvara, the mind of sitting still. And we progress to the mind of Samantabhadra, the mind of activity, and then to the mind of Manjushri. Now, of course, all three of these bodhisattva minds are together in practice right from the beginning. But in the beginning, we emphasize one, and then the other, and then the next. And we'll talk about that more as we go along. As I was thinking about this retreat, I was thinking tonight was going to be a kind of orientation talk. So I thought, well, the orientation really is orient yourself to practice. I have always thought that the mind of Samantabhadra is about work and about service. We have the Samantabhadra Hall, where much of the work of the monastery is done. The concrete, get it fixed kind of work of the monastery. Of course, there's work going on all over the place, but Samantabhadra Hall is dedicated to that work. So if I were to encourage you to orient yourself to practice, I would say put a little bit of energy into the mind of meditation while you're here. Not just the meditation on your cushions, of course that's good, but the meditation in between the times when you're sitting. The meditation of getting up and getting out of bed. The meditation of getting down the cloister to the Buddha hall. The meditation of work. So Samantabhadra is interested in the activity of service and of work, and that has two aspects. One, what we do outwardly for the benefit of ourselves and others, and what we do inwardly, the work of working on our minds. Inevitably, I'm going to say something which will repeat something I've said in the past, or which will be something that you've heard in the past. Many of you have been here a long time, been coming a long time. And maybe you'll be tempted to roll your eyes. Oh, God, I've heard that again. There it is again. Well, there's a little moment when you can practice. Rolling your eyes is obviously not one of the high Buddhist virtues, and we can identify it as that. Understandable though it might be, there is an opportunity to let go and bring your mind back to just sitting still. And there are countless opportunities for that during the day. Notice what your mind is doing. Let go. Bring your mind back to doing just what's in front of you. That is the work of converting the karma of mind that we have. That is the work that uncovers the life of Samantabhadra. As we go through the week, we'll talk about Samantabhadra's vows. And there's one that keeps coming to mind as I think about this retreat, which is the vow to entreat the Buddhas to stay in the world. And this has an obvious side to it. There's the story of Ananda and the Buddha telling Ananda 3 times that if you invited him, he could stay in the world an extra however many years. And if someone invited the Buddha to stay longer, then the Buddha would stay longer. And Ananda doesn't get it. He lets it go 3 times until at the end he realizes, oops, I could have asked the Buddha to stay longer. That's the obvious thing. We can invite the Buddha to stay in the world longer. But there's another aspect of that, which is the work that we all put in to keeping a place like this going. When you come to the monastery, you have the opportunity to help the monastery, to do work that benefits the monastery, to just do the regular things that keep the monastery going. Sometimes I've heard people say they come to the monastery and they're taken such good care of. The monks take really good care of you when you come to the monastery. This is excellent. I commend the monks in this. But we also have the opportunity to turn around and do our part to take care of the monastery and take care of the monks. So when you're doing your working meditation, think about that. Think about the offering that you all can make to help the monastery. At the same time, it's just working meditation, and we just focus on doing what's right in front of us and let go. Nothing special. But when we do that work, when we make that offering, that is one way that we're inviting the Buddha to remain in the world. One of the things I wanted to talk about with regard to that is something that we call self-care. It's called self-care in the world. This is a phrase that I normally don't really use. Kind of makes me squirm. And at the same time, we're encouraged to turn the stream of compassion within. Look carefully, treat ourselves with kindness. Normally, when we're talking about self-care, we're thinking about ways that we can be nice to ourselves. Ways that we can adjust that footstool just so. Get just the right amount of chocolate. Read just the right novel. You fill in the blank. But what I hope that you will do and consider when we're talking about taking care of yourself is the possibility that we can look at that from the perspective of non-self. What does it mean to take care of body and mind so that we can do our practice? What does it mean to help ourselves in a way that benefits both self and other? Coming to a retreat like this is invariably work. We talk about the spiritual path as climbing a mountain. And when you climb a mountain, you are working against gravity. You're going uphill. And walking a spiritual path is work. It takes effort. Now, as we go along in practice, we're asked to refine. Practice itself asks us, our teachers ask us, we ourselves ask ourselves, to refine what right effort is. What is right effort? One day, when I was a novice, the abbot of the monastery got really angry with a senior monk who had worked themselves to exhaustion and then had to leave for a while. And the abbot said, should have stopped earlier, said something earlier, done something earlier, and adjusted their way of life so that they could sustain their practice. Sometimes we hear the encouragement to work hard, to grasp the will, and we think about that as a thing, well, I'm going to have to push myself physically, and you might. But part of it is learning how to let go of the self which overdoes it. Let go of the self which invests too much in the activity that we're doing. When we come to the monastery to do work, we're given a great opportunity to just let go of our opinions and ideas about what needs to be done and do what needs to be done. I worked with a man when I was a layperson who was a sous chef, and he would sometimes help me in the bakery where I was working. It was an enormous pleasure working with this man. He was highly skilled in his own field, knew all kinds of things about food, would come and work for me, and he would just say, okay, what needs to be done? And I would say, do this. If he knew how to do it, he would do it. If he didn't know how to do it, he would say, I don't know how to do that. Tell me how to do that. I would tell him, and he would do it. He was completely able to let go of his own ego in that context. A very great example of bodhisattva practice. So when we're here at the monastery, we can view this as an opportunity to just let go of our ideas and opinions and get on and serve. And this brings us back to the matter of when we're asked to just practice. We can rely on the simple practice to take us where our heart wants us to go. We can rely on just the simple practice of meditation and keeping the precepts to take us where our heart wishes to go. Even though it's not glamorous, all foolish seem and dull, we can rely on our own intuition, our own sense of practice to take us where we want, where our heart wants us to go. So again, try to see what we're doing, what you're doing, from the point of non-self. One of my teachers has a great image. He says that we're normally in the situation where, I'm sure you've heard this, we're normally in the situation where we're going about with our wheelbarrow and we're constantly trying to put stuff into it. We're kind of going around to different experiences in life and we're trying to fill up our wheelbarrow. What can I get? What can I get from this situation? How can I get more? How can I get validation? How can I get love? How can I get confirmation? How can I get whatever it is you want? But in practice, we're actually asked to empty our wheelbarrow of things. So try to see not what you can get, but maybe approaching this non-self. What can you give? Eventually, we'll abandon that as well. We'll abandon the wheelbarrow. We'll abandon the whole thing and just do what needs to be done. But for now, maybe we can just say, what can I give? How can I look at this as not a situation of what can I get from this retreat, this experience, this time, but what can I give? This is kind of close to seeing from the perspective of non-self. And of course, don't twist yourself up in a knot trying to figure out what I'm trying to say, but just get on and do the practice. We can rely on the practice to take us where we want to go, to take us where our heart wants to go. So that's what I have to say this evening. I hope that you all have a good retreat. If you're joining us from home, I hope that you have a good retreat. Maybe you can take up some little job that needs to be done this week and do that job, set it aside in the sense of do that job as if you were doing it in the monastery. Something around the house that you've been putting off but needs to be done, that you don't really want to do but needs to be done. Take some time in your busy days, set it aside and say, right, during this time, I'm going to do working meditation. And do your best to really devote that time to working meditation. I hope that you all have a good retreat, and maybe you'll come away and it will have been useful. Who knows? Thank you. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha.